perimeter security. Before we talk about perimeter security, and these are the topics we'll be discussing, we need to understand the concept of defense in depth. So the first chapter over here is, or the first topic we'll be discussing about defense in depth. Then we'll talk about network security, some perimeter level, you can say attacks like DDoS attack. We'll talk about some protections which we can apply on the perimeter layer, like firewall, DDoS, VPN force tunneling. So let's talk about these topics one by one. The first thing is defense in depth, and this defense in depth is a kind of layered approach. That means how exactly you are protecting the assets of your organization. We all know the importance of data. Data is something very important for us. It may be possible that that data is lying in any application. That application is a part of compute. The compute is a part of network, and maybe your network is lying in your perimeter. Your users are accessing those resources, and maybe your infrastructure belongs to your data center. It's lying in your data center. That means there are many layers, and you have to protect all these layers. So in this chapter, we'll be talking about this layered protection, why it is important for us to protect each and every layer. So there will be the topic like DDoS, firewall, host security. If you take a look on this privilege identity management conditional access, this is something we discussed yesterday in the first session. We were talking about identity access management service and the premium features of identity that we discussed. Today we'll talk about network security, perimeter security. That would be the major agenda over here. We'll talk about segmentations. Container security would be as a homework. So let's get started with these services one by one. The first thing is your networking. Whenever you start your environment, whenever you start building your environment, the first element which you have to create, the first service that you have to create is called network, virtual network. This network is always comes under a planning phase, and it acts as a fundamental building block of your environment. All of your resources are going to be a part of this network, your VMs, your resources. So now it's important for you to understand that how exactly you want to define the security for the entire network. It may be possible your applications are lying in your network, your databases are lying, your services are lying, your servers are lying. So how are you going to protect those services? What kind of filtration needs to be done? Because your network is something, you're bringing your own logical network on cloud. And for better management purpose, we do the segmentation. That is called subnetting. For more security, if you want to filter the traffic, we add network security group, NSGs. NSG is something that we act on the subnet level, that we apply on the subnet level and on the NIC level. We'll talk about these services one by one. As of now, they are letting you know that for network security, how many things we have to keep in mind. When you create a network, you need to think about your IP addressing. Is it a dynamic assignment, static assignment? What kind of access will be given to your VM? How you are going to balance your load? What kind of load balancer you are going to use? How about the domain name resolution, DNS hosting? How are you going to manage the traffic for your network? Perimeter level protection using DDoS plan. To manage your network, you'll be doing the segmentation or subnetting. Security on the subnet level, you apply the NSGs over there. How are you going to route the traffic? You'll be applying the route table. what are the default routes there, and for connectivity purpose, how you are going to communicate across other networks. You may have other network on cloud. Maybe you have networks in Azure and on-premises. Maybe you are using peering. Maybe you are using VPN gateways. What kind of connection you are using with VPN gateway? And maybe you are looking for a direct connection, dedicated connection. So in this lesson, in this particular slide, they are making you familiar with the components of network. That when it comes to network security, you need to think about these many components: connectivity, routing, filtrations, load balancing. So we are going to talk about these things one by one. The first one is DDoS plan, or distributed denial of service. Now, the goal of DDoS attack is to prevent access to service or system. Hackers or attackers, they may try to attack in your environment using the botnets or using the bot devices. These bots are nothing but internet connected devices. And without any owner's knowledge, they may use your devices to make an attack on any environment. And the agenda behind these kind of DDoS attack is they want to make the performance of your environment slower. They want to slow down your services. So there may be public facing services in your network, like maybe you have your applications, you may have your VMs, which has public access, you may have your gateways. So DDoS is a collection of attacks. That's why it's called distributed collection of attacks. That type aimed at disrupting the availability of targets. They want to slow down the performance of your environment. Now Azure is saying, as you are deploying your services in Microsoft Cloud, in Azure Cloud, there may be your public facing services and DDoS attack may be there across your public facing services. So now Azure is offering a free DDoS plan for you. Azure says, as you are having the services on Azure Cloud, your services will be protected using a free DDoS plan. So they offer you a free DDoS plan, which get applied on the network level, which comes along with your VNet. So we have two types of DDoS plan: basic plan and standard plan. The basic plan comes along with the network. You don't have to pay for it. It's free of cost. But if you are talking about advanced, you can say protection, you want to cater, you want to mitigate volumetric attacks, protocol attacks, application layer attacks, you want to get the telemetry, you want to, you can say, further monitor the environment, you want to cater multiple subscription using one particular plan. In that case, you can go with standard plan, where you get adaptive tuning. Using machine learning, they try to get the behavior of your environment, and this is how they protect your environment. The good point about this standard plan is this plan can be applied to multiple subscriptions, multiple networks. And using machine learning, they do have adaptive tuning. They understand the behavior of your environment, regular behavior of your environment. For example, you can see this is my portal, and there I have a network. In the network, we have DDoS plan, standard plan, which has been applied. So do remember, the DDoS plan always get applied on the network level. And it protects all your public facing services. It protects your public IPs. According to this example, there are two public IPs, public IP 1 and 2, and this is the regular network utilization. But let's say there is a DDoS attack, sudden change in the traffic in network packets per second. So it will try to normalize that behavior. It will try to slow down that particular behavior of your, you can say, the network packets of your environment. That happens because of standard plan. That is possible using the standard plan. And later on, I can see these type of metrics. I can analyze my public IPs, my public facing services using the standard plan. So that plan get applied on the network level, and you need to choose that do you want to go with the free plan or you want to buy the paid plan, the standard one. That was one of the service which we apply on the perimeter. After that, there would be another service called Azure Firewall. Now, you may be familiar with the firewall. Firewall is a service by which we limit the traffic, we filter the traffic. If I talk about Azure Firewall, in Azure Firewall, it's a managed service. It's a PaaS offering. Again, the Azure Firewall also limit the traffic, but it's an advanced service. It's a big time service on cloud. When it comes to network filtration or traffic filtration, we use Azure Firewall, which is a managed service. And Azure offers you two different tiers for it, two different types of it. So do you want to go with standard firewall or premium firewall? As we talk about different SKUs, that means the feature will vary and the cost will vary. In premium firewall, we get TLS inspection, IDPS, URL filtering, web categories. These are the premium capability of firewall. Along with that, this firewall you can integrate with your third-party services as well, with third-party service provider system. It's like a same as next generation firewall. So you have to choose that which firewall you want to use, standard or premium. Other capability is you can see by default, your firewall is going to block the traffic. The traffic is denied by default. But whatever you want to allow, whatever type of traffic you want to filter or allow, you have to make a rule for that. And these are the rules: web categories, NAT rule, network rule, application rule. This is something you have to create. That means in firewall, you are going to have three type of rules: NAT rule, network rule, and application rule. This is a stateful service. Along with that, in Azure Firewall, we get threat intelligence. Any traffic which is coming from malicious IP, unhealthy FQDN, that can be detected by the firewall. And here we can create multiple rules by making some policies. L3, L7 connectivity policies can be created. The diagram which you can see right here, this is the diagram for hub and spoke. That means, like I said, this firewall is a big time service. It's a costly service as well. There would be two types of cost for a firewall: the fixed cost based on per hour, and there would be the cost based on consumption. And to get a centralized management, what we do, we share the firewall. Hub and spoke means we are talking about sharing the resources. We kept the firewall in a central network and we are sharing it with multiple spokes. Same goes for Azure Premium Firewall. It has some advanced capability. Other capabilities are same as standard one. It can be integrated with your on-premises. Azure to on-premises traffic filtering can be done using the Azure Firewall. So these are two types of firewall. Next we have Firewall Manager. Now the question is, as we are using this firewall for multiple networks, how can I manage such firewalls for various networks? So maybe you have 20 networks, 30 networks, and you are using one or two firewalls for those environments, region-wise. So how about the management? How about making the policy? How exactly you are going to segregate the firewall rules for different networks? So in that case, we have a service called Firewall Manager. And this Firewall Manager, as the name says, that helps you managing your firewall for various networks for centralized management. Now, it may be possible in your company, you have, let's say, hundreds of networks. For some network, you are using Azure Firewall, and you have kept your firewall in hub network, which is being shared with multiple other networks. You can see other networks. These are other networks. There are some firewalls which you have created with secure vHub. vHub means they are talking about virtual WAN. It may be possible you have multiple sites, multiple networks, which you have combined, which you have linked with one particular hub. So if you talk about the vWAN concept, maybe you do have a firewall with your hub. So it may be possible for some region there are different policies, for other region there are different policies, other set of rules. Some of the networks are connected with your on-premises using VPN, using express route. So in terms of managing such policies, we need to use Firewall Manager. Local policies we can apply. Global policies will be applied to all the firewalls. So we have different scopes available. Some rules you have to apply on your entire environment. Some rules you have to apply locally for one region, for two regions. And you see this vHub can be integrated with the other services like Zscaler, Checkpoint, iBoss. These are the three providers so far which you can connect with your vHub. This is a premium capability which comes along with Firewall Manager. Let me quickly show you the state of this Firewall Manager on my portal. This will give you much, a better understanding. So this is my portal and I'm taking you back to firewall. Now you see I have just searched for firewall and I got firewalls, firewall manager, firewall policies. So I'm talking about the manager. This is firewall manager over here. Let's go for it. And you see what kind of management we can achieve using this firewall. You have multiple networks. First of all, you can have a look on the view. It says a central security policy and root management service for cloud-based security perimeter. So how many networks we have, how many networks being covered with firewall, how many networks are covered with DDoS, how many networks hub have been covered with firewall. That you can see. Maybe I have 10 networks. I'll come to know that am I using any firewall for those networks? Am I using any policy for those networks? Where they reside? Are we using DDoS plan or not? You may have virtual WAN or vHub so that you can create and you can integrate the firewall with that. If you do not have, then you can create a new hub then and there. When I say new hub, that means they are talking about virtual WAN hub, vWAN hub. See, if you do have your existing vWAN, you can integrate that. If you don't have, then set up a new one. Application delivery platform. If I talk about security, then how many firewalls we have, how many policies we are having across these firewalls. I have just one policy. This policy being applied to how many networks, how many hubs, how many spokes, and this policy is inherited from which particular service. Maybe you have some security partner like Zscaler, Checkpoint, iBoss that you can integrate over here. Maybe you have DDoS plan that will get reflected over here, and whatever WAF policy, layer 7 firewall policies you have that you can define over here. So all this thing comes under Firewall Manager. Next, we have the implementation of the firewall. So when you set up the firewall, there are different type of rules which you can create. Like I said, you can create your application rule, network rule, and NAT rule. FQD and tags can be used. Outbound SNET can be used. Inbound DNet can be used. L3, L7 connectivity policies can be integrated. Policies means when I have multiple rules, I should create a policy and then we can have multiple rules within it. Now there is one more thing. Your firewall will be a part of dedicated subnet. Your firewall should deploy in a dedicated subnet, and that is called Azure Firewall subnet. In Azure, there are services which needs to be deployed in a dedicated subnet. Firewall is one of them. The naming convention should be specific. You can't use any random name for it. It should be Azure Firewall subnet. And as per Microsoft, as per their recommendations, they always allow you to use /27 or 28 as a CIDR, 26 or 27 as a CIDR. So that is all up to you. Your firewall needs a static public IP address, and if you want, you can enable the force tunneling. We'll talk about force tunneling in a while. So you can just see if I go to my portal and I want to have a firewall, I can set up a firewall along with my network or I can have it separately. I won't be able to create it, but I'm just going to show you these options. So first you have to choose what SKU. If it's a basic SKU, the features will get changed. If it's a standard one, then the other options will come into picture. If it's a premium one, then you'll be getting advanced capability like SSL terminations, web categories, IDPS, and definitely additional cost will be very. Now you see when it comes to premium firewall, you are restricted to use the firewall policies to manage the firewall. That means we have an organized structure to manage the firewall. Make your policies, create a rule, and then you have to create a dedicated subnet. Choose your network. Once you use your network, for example, I have my network. Do remember the networks which belongs to same locations, same RG, those networks you can use over here. If your network belongs to your RG, where you are going to have a firewall, like you can see, if I choose this particular RG, let's say I'm using this RG, and I have used East US location. So according to the selection, they are just bringing the network which belongs to East US and which belongs to CloudWeek RG1 resource. It's a dependency I'm talking about. Your firewall and network should be in same RG and same location. And once you create this is how your firewall gonna look like. This firewall will take time. It take around 5 to 7 minutes to create. I already have my firewall. That's what it is. This is my standard firewall and it is lying in Azure Firewall subnet. If you remember, I said your firewall should be on a dedicated subnet and the naming convention should be specific. It has a static public IP. It has a private IP. And further, these are the policies to manage your firewall. And now you see, I'm not getting any option to make a rule because all the rules will be created under this Firewall Manager. Go to your Firewall Manager and you can just add that dedicated service. You can just click on this option and here you can just see the firewall policy. So here you can start making your policy. So this is about the implementation of firewall. Next we have VPN force tunneling. VPN force tunneling means this concept comes into a picture when it comes to on-premises connectivity. You have Azure to on-premises connectivity using S2S, using VPN. That is called site-to-site VPN connection. Understand this diagram. In this diagram, you have your on-prem network and you have your Azure network. In your Azure network, you may have multiple segmentations. Dedicated subnets are there. You may have front-end subnet, back-end subnet, mid-tier, DMZ subnet. Your front end has public facing services. Your back end has some sensitive services. Now, definitely, you won't allow a direct access to the internet to your backend services. You can see this right here. So, what we need to do, as we know that the front end is directly connected to the internet, that is fine. But when it comes to internal services, we need to enable the force tunneling for that using SQS. That means we are not releasing these services over the internet. That will be connected via using a force tunneling. So it says internet bound traffic from VM always travels from Azure network infrastructure directly out to the internet without inspection or audit. So it's all about redirections. We are redirecting the traffic, internet bound traffic, back to companies on premises for inspections and auditing purposes. We are not leaving it on the internet, over the internet. So that option comes along with your firewall. When you have your S2S connection, you can enable this force tunneling. Next, you have this UDR, user defined route, and network virtual appliances. In Azure, before I tell you anything about UDR or NVAs, I will first tell you the basics of it. In Azure, we have two types of routes. We have system route and we have custom route. System route is something which gets created automatically and you don't have any control on that. Whereas if you do not want to follow the system route, in that case, you can create your own custom route. And that can be possible using UDR, user defined route. UDR means where user will define his or her own route, how the packet will be redirected. And in the UDR, you have to define three things: source, destination, and next hop. Source means from where the packets are originating. The source will always be a subnet. The route table will only get applied on the subnet level. If you take a look on the diagram, what do you see? It's a connectivity between on-premises and Azure using SQS. So it's a VPN gateway right here, VPN gateway on cloud, and both are connected using SQS, site-to-site VPN. Now there is a route which you are setting up. All the traffic which is originating from this particular subnet, gateway subnet, that needs to be redirected. That packet needs to be redirected to NVA, which is lying in DMZ. Now NVA means it's a network virtual appliances. And here we are talking about, like, it could be a firewall, it could be your network, it could be internet, load balancers, your VM which has routing capability, that can be treated as an NVA. Maybe you have a third party firewall that can be used as an NVA. You want that all the packet which is coming from the subnet that needs to be filtered by an NVA and then it can go to any particular destination. Maybe another service, maybe internet, or maybe anywhere. So three things needs to be defined in a route table: source, destination, and next hop. NVA can be used as a next hop. Same way, if you are talking about any traffic from this web tier subnet that we want to filter using NVA and then it is going to the internet. You see this orange line or this orange, you can say, direction for packets. This is the request from Azure workload. The green one is request to Azure workload. So that needs to be defined by you. Just do remember the route can be applied on the subnet level. It can be applied only on the subnet level. Next, we have hub and spoke topology. Hub and spoke means here we are talking about connectivity between multiple networks. So you can have a look on the diagram. So according to this diagram, you can see here on the right hand side, we have Azure networks. Multiple networks are there. And on the right hand side, we have on-premises. Left hand side, we have on-premises. If you recall, I told you about hub and spoke earlier, where we are talking about sharing the services and centralized management. That brings the cost effectiveness as well. So on the left hand, this diagram is something very informative. You can see on the, if you only have a look on the right hand side part of this diagram, there you can see only Azure network. Like this is your, let me highlight, this is your Azure spoke virtual network. This is my Azure spoke virtual network. Another spoke VNet, and this is hub. So all my spokes are connected through a pairing, VNet pairing. Pairing is something, it's a service by which we can connect Azure networks together. And same way, this hub network is connected through a pairing to the spoke virtual network. So in this manner, there can be multiple networks which can be connected like this. And take a look on this hub network. In this hub network, we have kept Bastion, Azure Firewall, VPN gateway. And as you can see this block, that means these three services have been kept in a dedicated subnet. These three are PaaS offering, and these services are costly as well. When it comes to centralized management, these services can be shared across multiple networks. Bastion is a service which we are sharing across many networks. You have to keep it in a Bastion subnet. Firewall is a service which needs a dedicated subnet called Azure Firewall subnet. VPN gateway. Gateway is a service where we have, you need a dedicated subnet for that called VPN gateway, gateway subnet. And that is further connected to the on-premises. And all these services are being shared with your spoke virtual network. Further, for monitoring purpose, we have enabled the diagnostic setting from these services, and we can monitor them using Azure Monitor. So hub is acting as a central point. All the major services have been kept in the hub network, which is being shared across the other spokes. Same way, if you talk about this is S2S over here. This is site to site. Using VPN gateway, we have made these kind of connectivity. So if you want to communicate from this Azure on-premises VM to your this Azure VM, in that case, this is something possible using VPN gateway, and then it is taking the connection through this pairing to your Azure network. So this is something very popular in we can say in industries. Organizations mainly prefer this hub and spoke environment where they actually share the services. Then there are two demonstrations about VNet pairing in firewall. Firewall implementations I have shown you. How does it look like? Firewall takes time. That's why I didn't create the firewall in front of you. But if you are talking about if you are looking for VNet pairing, let's quickly have a look on the settings for VNet pairing. Pairing is a service by which we connect two networks together. So I have these many networks available on cloud. For example, I want to set up the pairing between VNet 1 and VNet 2, which may belong to same location, different location, same subscription, different subscription, same tenant, different tenant. Pairing is possible for all these scenarios. So you open any of the network, and there you, on the left-hand side, you get the option for pairing. From there, you can configure the pairing with any other remote network. To provide the link name, maybe it's VNet 1 to VNet 2. Then traffic to remote virtual network. Do you want to allow that traffic, or do you want to block the traffic to remote virtual network? Traffic forwarded from remote VNet allow or you want to block it. Virtual network gateway or route server. This is something we use for gateway transit purpose. If you want to bring the transitivity or if you want to enable the transitivity from your gateway, then you have to enable this particular option. As of now, it's not required because we do not have any gateway. So you can leave it as it is. But if you have a gateway, then you have to enable this option, the first option. And as I don't have any gateway, that's why this option have been grayed out for me. So this would be the primary settings. And then with which network you want to peer, you have to define the detail about the remote network. Link name. What type of deployment model you are using? Is it a ARM? Is it a classic method? And where exactly your network is lying? Is it lying in the same net subscription, different subscriptions? What setting do you want for your secondary network? And once you click on add, you will be getting two notifications. Peering for both sides will get configured. A to B and B to A, both will get configured. Right now, this demonstration seems straightforward because maybe possible your network belongs to same subscription. But when it comes to different subscription, different tenant, you have to make sure you should have the right permissions. Otherwise, you won't be able to authenticate. So make sure right permission